This is the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Matt. In this podcast, we're going to discuss growing companies, automation and manufacturing,
and how we're building the lives and businesses we want to see in the world.
How's your week been?
Pretty good. Yours?
Tough, lots of pressure.
Yeah, we had to move the date to Sunday here, so I'm assuming Thursday was rather chaotic. So do you want to get into that, or do you want to just make that your general feelings?
I'll make that my general feelings.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been just honestly a chaotic couple of weeks. So, we had an intraload install that in a couple subtle ways kind of went sideways that were beyond our control. I think I mentioned this the other week, but I didn't really take into account with the intraload, because we're so dependent on the machine. If the machine is neglected, if the machine has, physical problems, they become our problem. And in this particular install, I think they kind of expected us to be machine techs to fix all the issues, which, didn't make me particularly happy. And it made the process pretty difficult. And I think that was combined with me making my own life difficult, because I saw all these things that we could improve on the intraload, and it became this engineering R&D sprint to make these improvements that, were never promised to the customer, weren't there on the demos. There were a lot of things that I think I brought to maybe an unnecessary level of polish, which is nice now that it's done, but it made things really hard. I spent, and the team spent a lot more time on site than maybe we should have, because of everything that was going on. It was just kind of a difficult experience, and I think everyone walked away happy. The customer walked away happy, which makes me happy at least. But definitely something that I think we need to scope out better, and very specifically map out, in the contracts. Hey, if your machine has these maintenance issues, you have to pay for us to be on site to fix them or get them fixed properly. There was even the control, the machine just needed a new motherboard. The control was running a quarter of the speed it should, and it was literally doing math wrong. We have all the
How are they making
intraload
parts?
I don't know. Yeah, the control would randomly misload programs. It would mistrack variables. So we had to actually slow down our PLC, the upload, to get it to have 100% process reliability. So there were just a lot of things that made things difficult. The Ethernet cable, the Ethernet cable that I don't know if it was Haas's or the one that was in there, it was bad. So we spent 2 hours troubleshooting a bad Ethernet cable. And this kind of happened over and over and over on this install. And given it's the first of that generation and it's an early product, obviously I'm going to be there. And that made my life very, very hard.
Yeah, the line that you said about scoping it out or polish that wasn't necessarily needed kind of reminds me of a quote that I'd heard from Merlin Mentors. They really just said, Matt, sometimes you're your own worst enemy, and wanting to do things X way, but sometimes, you just have to do what's good there or not chase certain things in this instance. So it's interesting because that's, I think that's a common theme that we both share, is we always want to make it the best we can. And sometimes we just have to accept certain things because the customer still probably would have been happy either way.
Yeah. And perfect is the enemy of done. That's a common theme.
Exactly.
But it's just one of those things, and I'm sure you've had these experiences where it's just a cascade of things with a certain customer. Every little thing, literally their coolant concentration was over double what it was supposed to be. So everything was sticky. Their machine was rusting, and and I kept trying to tell them the door was sticking. It was glued to itself because the rubber roll-up door. Normally the coolant lubricates it, right? And makes the door go up and down super smoothly. But it became glue. So we had to slow their door down so that, because they insisted, we have to run at over double coolant concentration, because that's just how it is. We add the coolant in, at the mixed ratio, it evaporates. So it's just going to be higher. And that mindset is of just having a bad process and not being willing to fix it is something frustrating to interact with, right? And candidly makes me worry that the very simple maintenance procedure of the intraload is going to get followed. And maybe 2 years down the line, the thing gets crashed because they let, an inch of chips build up. Yeah.
I mean, that's if somebody who doesn't want to change the oil in their car,
I know,
you
right?
just can't help them.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like every little step along the way has been tough. But it's done. We got the Gen 1 and 2 UMC interload really polished. But yeah, it's been a hell of a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I guess on the general feelings, it actually worked out kind of well that this got pushed back because I wasn't going to meet my objective or I guess the task item that we had set for each other last week. It's just been middle of the funnel sales has been just crazy. We've had more RFQs than I've ever seen coming in with like customers giving us detailed multi-page SOWs with their metrics, what
Yep.
they're expecting. And we're just trying to scope these out as fast as possible. I'm looking at a list right now where I just got one done this morning and I got 5 more in front of me. And the last one took like 3.5 hours just
Oh,
to
so you're working the weekend
lay out.
with me right now.
Oh, this is one of those where it's like, well, I want to get these turned really quickly because that's one of our objectives for the year here is being fastest in class for quote turnarounds. And so when you have that amount coming, I can handle a couple in a week, but having to try and get through 5 here is a little.
Yeah, and one thing being, as someone who used to run a job shop, like a lot of bigger shops would have like entire quoting departments.
Oh,
And that's one of the last things that the owner ends up letting go a lot of the time. And
yeah, that's literally as we kind of go down the CIs, that's one of them where it's like I need to get my SOPs or the team and I need to work on creating the SOPs so more of this can come off my plate. The issue is that we're still learning and changing a few things in the way we do it. So, and the softwares we're using. So it's all kind of converging here. I think that's going to be a Q3 major objective for me and the team that's helping me on
Yep.
sales. So,
any other general feelings of the week? How is Matt feeling? Overwhelmed, stressed, good,
it's an interesting
good,
question.
bad?
I'd say just kind of neutral because I went through like, very excited about all these, but then, the amount of work
I
that
know.
it takes to
Yeah.
put them together kind of hits reality, but I can kind of get more into some of the sales and marketing. I'd say overall, I'm really excited because these projects are the best that I've ever seen in terms of alignment for our company and ones that I just really want to do.
That's good. Are they
So,
mostly leads from the trade shows?
I go through the list. One was a LinkedIn lead, a trade show, previous customer, actually the one that we just deployed a machine in. So that one, trade show, and they're kind of spattered among Automate, Pack, and ProMat. So it's not like they were all just Automate. It's interesting because, some of that, Pack last was 6 months ago. And
Right.
we're having leads come in for RFQs on those now just after repinging them and like having a few initial conversations.
Yeah, that's I think with trade shows too. Like most of the companies at trade shows have so many constant directives that it becomes like we're gonna follow up with this thing when we have a need for it in 8 months, and we've seen the same thing.
And then the other one that's not even on the list, which is really cool as we roll kind of into the sales and marketing, is it's our first lead from the podcast actually. So
Oh yeah, you
active
mentioned that.
listener has a couple cool projects, really clever creative thinker as well because I don't know when he started the automation project that he did internally. It's like a semi-assisted pneumatic process and it's really clever done. It's just one of those where he needs a team to
Yeah.
take it to the next level of automation. Having a one person deploying it just isn't feasible. So it's really fun to come in and see where somebody put a bunch of legwork into getting stuff figured out, and hopefully we can scope something out that'll take them to the next step.
Yeah, where it's a clean HMI, clean electrical, troubleshootable. Yeah, we've seen a lot of those too, where the self implementation works, but then you hit a wall with the PLC or with the troubleshooting.
Yeah, there's always the miscellaneous things where it's like it works as a test bench, and he's like, well, now I need to scale because we got our prototypes and stuff like that done. And it's not meant for making the tens of thousands of units annually that it needs to.
Yep, makes sense.
So, yeah. I guess that's kind of a good segue into sales and marketing. Do you have anything else?
We're already there.
Yeah. Do you want to cover anything specific?
Well, one of the big things that I'm focused on right now, we've had that kind of those give back production issues. But we've decided, we're on like the fourth or fifth rev of all of our products. And I've realized it's just kind of confusing because people don't know which one they have. And
Interesting.
someone will maybe ask about a question, like a technical question about, certain use case. And it's like, well, when did you buy your Gimvac or your Gim Gripper, right? So we're just doing kind of a entire product line wide rebrand where the Gimvac is now the Gimvac 3. The grippers are now the Gim Gripper 4.
That's a
And
solid idea to make it
yeah,
very clear and visible.
we swapped from clear anodizing to black anodizing on everything, so the logos are more visible. I'm really focused on trying to get our branding to be very clear, to keep everything more consistent. And along with that comes a ton of groundwork of taking new pictures of everything, of updating all the customer-facing step models, of doing this, that, and the other thing. Not to mention, we still have all this super old videography. Like our turnkeys, all of our turnkey videos. It's a Gen 1 grip flip grip module. We're on Gen 4 now. So, they're like a lot of our advertising is, from products that have gone through multiple different revs, which is something I want to fix, but just haven't had the time yet. So that's one big initiative. We're back on top of newsletters again, but I have kind of pulled back on marketing spend a little bit, and the time I've been putting into it, mostly because we can't keep up with current customer demands, which is something to work on fixing.
I can definitely echo that because it was one of my notes here is we can't keep up with the middle of funnel leads that are right now. So it's like all energy that was going towards top of funnel marketing over the last couple of weeks here has just been tapering off, and I'm not seeing any let up on that. But it also aligns with us scaling back with our agency because we knew we were completing a lot of big lift at this point. I'm just happy to see that the leads are coming in as kind of predicted.
Yeah. How did I know you're still kind of mid website rollout. Is the website faster again, and are there more changes coming?
It's a little bit faster. There's
Yep.
still some challenges on the homepage. I don't know why it seems like it should be easy to get it back up to this speed, but you can go load it. It probably takes 4 seconds right now.
Yeah, that's up there.
Yeah. So that's supposedly going through, but really all that's left is get that speed back, figure out what's causing that delay, get the products put on there with the search engine that we're kind of talking about. And then it's going to be just kind of a little bit of polishing, but I think that's going to come in August where we go through and just do a lot of little details.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's one thing that's worth talking about is obviously we both kind of run semi, integrator like services for automation.
Mhm.
But the kind of the challenge of having something outsourced, right, is obviously we're both in the position of like, okay, well, we don't really understand how to build a website, and we're both outsourcing it to some level. But the approach you take, who you choose to do the outsourcing with, and at the end of the day, one of the challenges too is that you have to have the trust there, because going to a consulting agency that you don't understand, they might just be putting in 30 minutes of work and billing you for 3 hours, right?
Yeah, and going through agencies, because I know this isn't our first agency we've worked with. We've been really happy with this one, but it kind of took a while to get there. And I think some of that's learning exactly what you need and don't need too.
Yeah. Yeah, and we took a very different approach because we churned through like 4 agencies. And, I think a big part of our problem was our spend just wasn't high enough. It's like, okay, if our whole ad budget is 20 grand a month, are we going to spend 12 of that on, an agency to build the ad media? Or are we just going to build the ad media ourselves and, deploy that as pay-per-click or whatever?
And we built a bunch of content media prior and then hired the agency, basically based on kind of I'd call it a multi-step, I guess, what's a good way to put it? It was just, we ran some good beta tests or prototypes, if you will, and they worked. And then we kind of doubled down, hired some people internally, did that worked. And then it was, now we just need more support across some experts in SEO, web deployment, stuff like that, and define those scopes.
Yeah. I hate to push you, but you got to get that load time down because that'll kill your SEO ranking over time.
I
which
am very much. I'm
yeah,
frustrated that it's taking so long to get
yep,
it corrected. Like
yep,
they've been so responsive on everything else, and then it's like, why are we not getting this corrected like immediately?
yeah. That's one thing we had to do a ton of was, you know, um, pressure our developer a lot and go through minimizing everything. We had some things that were like autoplay videos we took out just in seeking getting that load time sub 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I worst part is I know I could go in and just start changing stuff, but I don't want to step on their toes either.
Yeah.
Like I know how to go into WordPress, I know how to change out features, but it's also at the same point, if I just kind of take that monkey from them, they're not going to figure it out for us.
And you can break stuff in unintentional ways too, and I've definitely done that.
For sure.
Oh, I wanted to ask too. I saw an Instagram ad for Develop. So are you
Okay.
you're still running pay per click?
So our summer intern has a budget, and
Okay,
so
cool.
I'm going to go with yes. He must have turned something back on.
Yep, yep. Because I was like, I thought Matt said we were doing $0 pay per click now, and then I
I
go and I see the Develop LLC learn more.
Yeah, I gave him a little bit of budget to test so he could see what stuff's working a little bit quicker. Because obviously, coming into summer here, he's only got 3 months. So it's like, all right, how can we accelerate your feedback loop?
Yep, cool, makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty much the extent of those ads.
Yeah. Anything else on sales and marketing?
More or less, just putting proposals together. That's the extent of it. Trailing off, like we said, road trips are a big thing for me right now. So I've got one per week booked for the next month. So a lot of day trips in my future.
Yeah.
And it seems like they can every week I book another one a month out. So
Are they customer site visits like yeah.
they're either automation assessments or they know what they want and they're big enough relationships that it's like, all right, I'm one of them I'm gonna drive to Ohio potentially for. One of them was just in really far northern Wisconsin. That was quite the road trip, but it was the road trip northern Wisconsin, such a big project that you just have to put some face relations into them.
Yep. I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're a bit tired.
I am a little bit tired. Yeah.
I am with you there.
Yeah. Maybe that should have been part of general feelings. I also didn't have any caffeine in the last several hours. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. I just popped open like a third Red Bull.
Yeah. So we're sales and marketing is done. We're on to engineering and R&D. You're the one that
Oh,
sounds
God.
like had the week explode because mission creep, scope creep.
Well, yeah, and I haven't taken a day off either. So work Saturday, working today. I guess part of what I think makes our podcast unique is we're very candid. We have, we're short staffed, which has been a challenge. Obviously, this intro load has eaten up a ton of time. Our lead times have been out there for a while, which is fine, but we are starting to have a kind of a cash flow squeeze from having so many mid-cycle projects that were scheduled to be done, that the customers, just didn't need them and told us that we were welcome to have an extension, which is pretty common. A lot of people automating these multi-thousand part runs, they don't really care when they get it. They care that they do and it works well. We have some of those. We have, some customers who maybe had an ECO. Something really common is like, they say in the turnkey checklist, their stock is one size, it's another size. So then, we have to go back to them. There's a delay. For various reasons, a lot of our projects have dragged out, which is putting me under some stress. And we have a couple of customers who were like, just really, really want their stuff early. So here I am, in on the weekend running, turnkeys that I shouldn't even be running because, as the business owner, I just want to be able to relax and realize that cash on hand. So that's been part of the R&D process, and our templates are really good, and it's been nice to revisit it. Unlike a lot of things where I've revisited them and I'm like, this sucks, it has to be redone.
Which templates? You're saying the customer
for
intake?
our like 2-op automation turnkeys, they're like 25 grand. We do like 4 to 6 of them.
But what do you mean
every
by
month.
the template? Like how you deploy them?
Oh yeah,
how
so I guess we've never really talked about this, but the problem with grippers before we came along, at least I like to think, was that there was no good way to control them, right? And it's just really hard to do the programming. Huge companies have been running grippers since like the 70s. But the problem is you need like an apps engineer, and it's a lot of work. And we built out these really robust templates that do all the math at the control level using macro variables that makes it all automated. So our customers don't touch anything gripper related. They
Mhm.
just put in a couple of variables.
Understood.
What the XYZ stock size is. It's actually been nice to go back to a process because I've been doing this a lot, as I've been working in the company, going to the Gemba kind of forced and seeing all these things that have been broken that I've been fixing. It's been nice to go back to one and like, hey, it's really good and we can optimize this process. Cleaning up little things, realize we can take a lot of like impromptu videos just as we're setting it up and then, be able to put those in the PowerPoint document and kind of, give a lot easier reference for training as opposed to, going and just walking people through step by step in the PowerPoint, really leveraging the power of video. So yeah, I guess working on the turnkeys, but yeah, it's just been intro load and getting it to that level of polish. We upgraded the motors on the intro door. We went and made some, mid-process design tweaks that were kind of not, I would say, unnecessary improvements for the the UMC Gen 1 and 2 that we just
Okay.
deployed. And yeah, I mean, I rewrote all the code, like pretty much all the code, and added a lot of functionality, which, I'm proud of doing, but was, I gotta be honest, was totally exhausting. And I did it to probably a higher level than I should have if I was like being, responsible, like work-life balance kind of person.
What's interesting too is trying to make those changes that close to the finish line. The amount of risk that you're taking on there, Michael, is really interesting. Like, because I know we ran into that for projects, and it's like there's certain times where it's just like we know we
Yeah.
want to make a tweak here. We physically can't change these variables or touch the code because if
Right.
we cascade this, yeah, you can revert code, you can do things, but we just need this machine running when the customer comes for a site visit, or to your point, when you're deploying. And it's like that always makes me so nervous when I hear, oh, we're just
Yeah,
updating this
yeah.
little bit here in the code, and it's like it's too late. I really
yeah.
don't want to hear that.
Well, there were places where we didn't have any choice. I mentioned like their motherboard just needs to be replaced, right? And for the first couple hours of doing the PLC integration, I'm like, what the hell is going on? I couldn't get the like Ethernet converter to talk to the machine, and it took us like 2 hours to figure out that this cable was dead because I was just getting frustrated and just trying stuff, right? So then it connects finally. And then, we have a little upload program button that uploads all the programs that are assigned to the pallet numbers, uploads the load order. Then that's like randomly throwing or not transmitting data. And it turns out their control has, just like a shot processor, right? So we had to like slow down and put delays in between all the sets to get it to where it was like 100% consistency. And then I told them, look, you need a new processor. But if you're going to run this, please look at these variables and make sure they're the same, right? When you hit the upload button.
I mean, that's just a ticking time bomb is what I just heard there, because time's degrading. You set your delays for the current state. And if the system's already failing, that's just waiting for a catastrophic failure of some
Yeah, but like you
magnitude.
said, you don't put oil in a car. What can you do? So we disclose, hey, like we found like these 7 maintenance issues. We fixed 3 of them, for free. You're welcome. As they're angry at us. And then I just kind of know like they're probably not going to be solved problems, right? And my goal is for them to succeed. And my fingers are crossed that they do address these things and take care of everything. But, I don't have that control. So we did everything we could. But yeah, you're right. Like, and I tried to bring it up, like, you got to replace the motherboard. Sooner or later, it's going to fail. Like, look, it was doing math wrong. I showed them, like, if we didn't insert dwells, it wouldn't load a variable when normally it's like instantaneous, right? So I guess we kind of had to change the code because we weren't going to get out of there, right? If we didn't make on-site last-minute code changes. So frustrating for sure. And we have those improvements now, but yeah, I guess some of those changes, like when else are we going to encounter a machine with a dying motherboard that the customer doesn't want to replace it? Like, that's
who knows?
Right.
It's like you said in the contract, but like if you cover all those edge cases in a contract of like,
Yeah.
hey, if your motherboard's bad, it's like, good grief, your contract's 40 pages long, and I know we've ran into that in the past. Then it's like,
and then it gets stuck in legal, and it's just like, what what's even the point?
yeah, I mean, you need to allow some velocity or momentum and take on
Yeah.
some risk. So it is a challenge. I hear you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, engineering and R&D, I guess the other thing, we're just rolling out new versions of a lot of stuff. We've been continuing to sell old versions. A lot of the time people would, buy it because we haven't updated the Shopify store. And then we just reach out and we're like, would you like the new version? It's better, stronger, and smaller. And most people have taken us up on that offer, but I just need to retire the old revs and make that the only choice. Yep.
Just probably need the time to change the website.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We have this job posting up for this assembly tech. Like, we need to fill that position. But if I'm working 12 hours just trying to grind through this project that is kind of swelled out of scope, and has a timeline on it, well, that's one of those things that got procrastinated, and now I got a whole bunch of like video resumes to review. So. But I guess that's one cool thing we did is we basically are asking everyone for like a 60-second video just to cut out that step of our hiring process where I do this like 5-10 minute meeting to cut the funnel down a little bit more because, man, and some people just refuse to send a video and send a rude message back. And it's like, awesome, you're out. One less person to interview and watch something.
That's actually nice if somebody's not willing to do like they're going to have to be on camera to interact with your potential customers. So it's like if they're not willing to do it for an interview, it's like, great.
Yeah. It's. I was surprised how nasty some of the interactions were. Like just like we kindly asked for like a 60-second video on an Indeed thing, and we're like, we liked your resume, and then some people were just like, oh, you're wasting my time. Or one guy said, I'm not a frickin' millennial. I'm not going to make a video for you. I actually found it kind of amusing and made it easier to click those X boxes on the Indeed resumes.
Yeah, self-filtering.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
But what about you, engineering R&D?
We've got a customer site visit on Tuesday this week. I'll actually be on the road, so I'll be at a potential customer site visit while the team is hosting for a proof of concept. So actually, you saw the gripper on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
You had commented. So we've got a family of grippers that have to pick up their part. And part of the risk was being able to do it reliably with a 6-axis robot and hitting their rate. We have to be able to pick in sub 4 seconds of that part. We're doing it reliably. So that's part of the sign off. They've got to come in and see that. And then the other part is reviewing the CAD for the other ones. The other grippers, along with the entire weldment, the entire conveyance system, the robot structure, all the stuff that's putting it in the box. It's got a really cool tip table too, since it's a 6-axis robot, and the product has an interesting aspect ratio that we found that having the case tipped just makes it so you can stack them in there a little bit nicer, dropping them kind of on their side, top of each other, if you will. And so they're coming in to review that CAD. After that, then it'll be going into build. But with that, we had another stage of that project, which was their palletization, case erection, case labeling, case top sealing. And the team's been wanting to have that pretty much buttoned up too, even though it doesn't need to be done for that proof of concept.
Right.
So once we start building the other phase of the machine, we're not worrying about that. That's kind of been the theme is now that we're not behind on any projects or behind like in the terms of we're against the date, if you will. It's been, all right, how do we get these other things just further ahead so they're not a problem in the future? So that's been one of them, which is really cool to see the team like, hey, this doesn't need to be done for many months actually, but if we get it out of the way with the rest of the system, we know when we're testing it with this new robot, that's just that many less variables to be thinking about.
Right.
So that's kind of one big push. The other one just software details, which lays into that portion of it, is a little bit of architectural changes to make our speed of new machine builds just much faster.
Yeah, cleaning it up.
Yeah. So that's nice to see.
Yeah. I guess one thing I didn't mention too that I'm starting to see more and more, I mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago, we're doing more larger turnkeys. In an interesting way, we're becoming like predominantly more of an integrator than we have been in the past. Obviously we're the OEM that makes the product, but the projects that come on the back end are getting bigger and more complicated.
Nice.
Yes and no. It has different challenges. But that I have realized over time, like, the gripper business seems appealing of like just making grippers. It turns out that because it's so new, just, generally speaking in the world of CNC, which is a very risk averse industry, the people just really need the integration and a lot of stuff done for them to trust it. But one thing we've been getting more and more into is in-process part marking, where we're doing part marking in some way, whether it's ball peening, laser engraving, what have you,
Nice.
inside the machine after the part is machined automatically.
You're laser
Um,
engraving in the machine?
That's a whole can of worms, but that's there's one project that is ongoing that kind of has that involved, and another one that's being scoped out right now.
That
Um,
sounds not so bueno.
Well, it's coolant-proof housings and a lot of integration, and ideally run without coolant. And
Now you've got a snow globe of chips, dust.
Well, yeah, that's chip evacuation's pretty critical in
Yeah.
gripper loading to begin with. But it is neat to have that, without and be doing part marking in an automated fashion without using a $40,000 cobot. Like especially if you're then able to take out that entire process, because if you're doing part loading on a CNC machine with a robot already, that's $150,000 integration, and now you got to do a $35,000 cobot plus the integration there, and you have the loading step in between.
And the value that $150,000 robot in a lot of those instances just isn't offset, or the
Yeah.
ROI is there. And I mean, Fanuc and a lot of robot distributors just announced 8% plus increase across the board.
Yep.
So, I mean, and when you get that from Fanuc, you go, all right, we may as well plan on all materials that we purchase going up by a minimum of 8%, because Fanuc and PLC companies set the pace for price increases.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing too. Just generally in the automation, aftermarket industry, I'm seeing a downward trend in pricing. So that's actually comforting to hear. Because
Describe that further, what you're seeing.
Well, generally speaking, there's always been, I think the challenge with automated part tending in particular has been, or pallet tending for that matter, has been that, for a 3-axis machine, maybe that for a mid-tier machine is $65,000, right? A small VF2 with kind of a reasonable amount of options. And that might scale to $125,000 for a nice 3-axis, right? And the issue historically has been that the actual robot integration has been like 125 minimum. So, you have this ratio of, either, 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 of the cost of the spindle to the thing that's tending it. A lot of the time,
really tough sell.
Yeah, it's a very tough sell. And that cost of a lot of these palletizing systems has been creeping down, slowly, but it has been coming down. Generally, I've been seeing the palletized systems that are in the market actually becoming more limited to hit that cost. So I'm seeing a lot more 8 pallet changers as opposed to 40, right?
Okay. That was going to be my question. Is this
Yep.
Is this a market shift because people aren't buying, or is this
absolutely.
a product shift change to make it more appetizing because they're realizing that the market, I should rephrase that, not buying the expensive solutions because the ROI isn't there, or because the market isn't supporting it because of economy?
Well, I think there definitely has been and is a market for those higher tier systems, right? And that market hasn't gone anywhere. But I think generally speaking, the market has been very underserved for a system that a job shop can support or a small manufacturer can support, right? Where if you're not making 10,000 parts per month of like medical grade components or aerospace components, there's been no solution for you. And I think that I'm seeing like the automation market in general of things like, RoboJobs, AWRs, Halters, Trinities is moving in a more cost-effective trend, which is good to see. Candidly, I think it's bad for me because, it means those other things are more competitive, but that's just interesting to hear that, I'm not really in tune with the like 6-axis robot arm market. It's interesting to hear that, as I'm seeing these systems come down in price a little bit, that, Fanuc is going the other direction.
Yeah, I'd say cost of materials are. What's interesting is I'm seeing competition to like the MRS. Those costs are either staying flat or going down as well.
Yep.
And that's where it's like, all right, is this market chasing to the bottom? And that's where Develops made the stance that, all right, we're not going to lower the prices just to chase it. We're going to continue on the service side, and the customers that see the value in that, they're going to get the service that we believe in and what it takes to do it correctly. And those typically are the people that need everything done for them, the people that can manage a robotics integration for case packing or palletizing. They can just buy the parts and do it anyways,
Yeah.
or maybe they just
Yep.
need to buy some systems that are close enough and have it done. But the people that are buying from us need everything from, door to door, if you will, of helping them scope it out exactly what they need. We deploy it, and then we also support them on the back end maintenance with, our Power BI, data analytics, remote training, and sales, or not sales calls, but remote, just calls in general for diagnostics.
Yeah, I mean I think that's kind of the reason I've seen, or that we've shifted our positioning a little bit from a focus on product sales to a focus of we're the integrator that integrates our own OEM products, because I can sell somebody a system and it's $4,000, right? Like it's like and they do it themselves and it works and great. But it's so much more profitable, and it's just easier to make a different amount of revenue. Doing these $25,000 integrations of multi-thousand part runs, with two operations.
I think today's buyers just don't want to go through the distribution model either. So I think you're hitting a really solid win there for what you're selling for a value prop, because people are just sick of that layer of fat in there that adds limited value.
I've seen it go both ways though. I think I mentioned like a month ago we had this like very small, like $1,000, right? They want to buy a tumble basket, and they're like, oh, can I buy this through a distributor that's already on our approved vendor list? And I'm like, well, we don't have any distributors for that product. We have distributors for our more expensive CNC products, but not that one, right? And they're like, okay, we're planning on sending you a PO. We're gonna send you our vendor approval document. And I'm like, we won't fill out your vendor approval document. Here's our default vendor information template, like that has all of our information, our DUNS number, a bunch of references, and here you go. And they're like, no, you have to fill out ours. And they send a DocuSign, and it's 63 pages. And I just email it back. I'm not filling this out for $1,000 order. Like, come on. And there are instances like that I've seen, especially of these like large, very bureaucratic corporations that like they want to go through a middleman because they have created so much internal bureaucracy that they can't just pull out a credit card and spend $1,000.
We see the same thing on capital equipment. I mean, we've got one project right now where they want us to come in for an automation assessment, and they have nobody else that can do XYZ services that they want to buy. And it's literally going to take us like 4 months just to become a vendor for them. And
don't even get me started if a basic document gets forwarded to the legal team. It's like,
well, that's exactly where we're hung up right now. And the guy we're working with, he's like, yeah, this is going to take us 4 months, but we're at least planning for it in his Gantt, because he knows when he needs the assessment completed, his project scoped, and then us starting his machine. And it's like, well, I guess if this all goes well and you're happy and we can find the ROI on this, we're probably going to get to build this machine.
Right.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on the mindset of the customers. Like a lot of corporations are totally fine to deal with. Right. But it's just if the culture like fails to empower people with the, ability to put $1,000 purchase on a credit card, that's
that's a challenge if they can't put that on a credit card.
Well, yeah, it's like, how much labor are they spending on these things, right? You might spend, $5,000 in internal legal to review like a basic document. It's nutty. Yeah. When potentially like, they might not even pass whatever the vendor requirements are there.
Well, is there any checks and balances that actually happen, or does that paperwork that you filled out even get looked at? Does it just get filed and, all right, you can buy your $1,000 thing because they see that it's $1,000. It's no risk. We just got to go through the paperwork for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, we'll stop complaining about bureaucratic corporations.
I think it's just funny because that's how you end up with like somebody that shouldn't be supplying probably in a network, and it works against them. Like, hey, we've got this supplier that can do X, Y, Z, and now you've got the war dogs in your place supplying.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a place for distribution. Like being able to cast a wider net has a lot of value on the product side. We explore doing distribution deals with the turnkeys, and it just never really made sense, right? It's like how can I trust that a third party who's going to get trained by us is going to do the integration up to an acceptable level, and basically that turned into like, okay, we'll pay you a small referral fee for the customer, but then we're going to take it over.
Yeah, I'm on the side of when we started Develop, it was tough to even buy through distributors because we were a nobody.
Yeah.
And now they want to work with us, which is just like kind of just has rubbed me really the wrong way. When we had active
Yeah.
projects, I was trying to spend good amount of money with distributors, and I couldn't even get questions answered because we were such a small business.
Yep. That's
I think that's what really kind of frustrated me with the distribution model.
that just frustrates me with the whole industry, honestly. It's like, why can't, like if you have an existing product, like a Fanuc robot, it should just have a price, right? It should just have a publicly available price. Even UR does this, right? Like, just put the price on your website. Like, you're still allowed to give better pricing to, your great customers. Like, there's just so much lack of transparency. Like, obviously, with like a custom service business, like the stuff that we're doing most of the time, yeah, like there has to be an RFQ there, right? Because the
Yeah.
integration, there's all these caveats.
Yeah, there's
for-
air quote engineering semi-custom.
But like even then, just across our industry, there's so little transparency. And even with the 2-op turnkeys, we pretty much say like, yeah, they're roughly 25 grand. If you throw some crazy component with a bunch of extra stuff on it, obviously that's going to cost more, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even if it just went starting at.
Yeah, absolutely. So people know, like, do I want to waste my time like calling on this and investigating this further? Yeah, that's just a big gripe I have with the manufacturing industry in general, and I think it's one of those things that is changing. But man, is our industry slow to change?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, company-wide updates and improvements. While we can't change the industry, we can change our business that might change
Yep,
the industry.
yep. Do you want to start with that one?
Really, our team's been focusing on a lot of execution to get ready for this POC. Like pretty much the entire mechanical engineering team was either on CAD for that or CAD for sales proposals. So it's a lot of execution this week, but there's been good communication of what we're focusing on for some coming company-wide updates and improvements, because we know we have some available resources coming up to kind of sweep some stuff up, if you will, because we started the year with several CI initiatives, and we've got a handful of them that are at like 75 to like 90% complete. It's like they just need to be checked off so we don't talk about them anymore. The process is completed, and now they can just go through iterations. So I think that's really the main focus, was the communication this week of, all right, we know we have other CIs we want to start. We're not starting more until we see these completed and move on. That's kind of a big theme across Develop, is just making things done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us, it's mostly been, I think I've been focusing a lot on getting our CNC process streamlined. I'm trying to get more of the staff to have some at least basic understanding of CAM. We have given our size, especially given that we still need to hire people, we're in a position where like a lot of little things can't be necessarily assigned to the person I would like to assign them to, because they don't have, CAM knowledge or basic CNC setup knowledge. I think we're more dependent on, a couple consultants than I would like. I'd like to at least have the option to handle some of these things ourselves, without doing them personally. So, that's getting some of our staff trained up on basics of CAM. And as I've dug into it, also, revamping our standardized tool lists, improving our processes. Just this morning, I was kind of tired of doing turnkey work. So, I basically revamped the CAM for a product that we had been, locally outsourcing, to be able to make it here, which is our little, locally outsourcing, to be able to make it here, which is our little, what I call it, the pendant for the M-Code Air Kit. Just trying to bring a lot of those things in-house, which lets us then, have the follow through from that is that we have fewer parts that we need to hold on hand. We can control more of the process. There's a few things I don't like that we're going to do. So, on that part in particular, we're going to move that back from anodize to powder coat so we can control the entire process beginning to end. Even though I think anodize is a superior finish, but it's not strictly necessary for that part.
It's just like product velocity is what you're going for by doing it that way.
It's mostly just getting rid of the reliance on OSP, outside process, whenever we can. We still are going to anodize precision components, things that need wear resistance. But if we can powder coat something that has no, real mating features on it that is mostly cosmetic, then that's what we're going to do, because it lets us keep a smaller quantity on hand, gets rid of another lead time, gets rid of another buffer. It's
Yeah,
the
it's a critical path management
Yeah.
thing.
yeah. So that's a challenge, and we never want to get into the position ideally where we're not able to make something within a week, like a business week, because we don't have that part on hand, right? We ideally want to pull the Kanban card, get that thing into production, and whenever we outsource something, whenever we have an OSP, that means we're holding a lot more inventory, and the Kanban quantities are much higher. And especially as I'm a little bit worried about cash on hand, I know how much money I have in inventory, and it's considerably more than I have cash on hand. And I would like to just shrink that number to well under half of the value that it currently is.
Sounds like a solid strategy. I mean, liquidity is king. You
Yeah.
can use that in more ways than a bolt.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, those are kind of all the things on my mind, and obviously I've been making a bunch of product improvements to intraload out of necessity, and I guess some desire, but
Nice.
cool.
What's the challenge? We kind of cruise through this. What do we want to challenge each other to for the week?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's to complete a couple of turnkeys, and get them out the door, get the customers trained, and unfortunately that means that I'm doing it personally, which is what it is. But I think to catch up, and to also own the process a little bit more, I think that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
How about you?
I have 5 sales proposals that have to be laid out this week.
Yep.
It's interesting because I think what we're both seeing here is these are taskless items. We're very much in the business right now.
Yep.
And I think it's been good and bad on that, because sales has never required this much effort or energy across our
Yeah.
entire team. Like, we've never seen this much top of funnel. We've never been trying to put this many more new projects in the future dates, if you will, for us. So it's forcing some SOP changes there, but it's very real on the amount of execution I think both of us are having to do within the business.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. What were our accountability items from last week? I didn't bring my little tablet.
I had mine typed up. I didn't type yours, so I'll apologize for that. Mine was follow up with the 4 stars, which I finished yesterday. I didn't finish prior to Thursday, so I would have failed if we would have had our Thursday call.
Was it to make a turnkeys page, or was that the week prior?
Oh, I lost you.
Oh, coming back.
I
Okay.
honestly don't remember.
Okay.
Oh.
Because we made a turnkeys page. I know that we talked about that. I just don't know if we talked about it last week or the week prior. And I know we've been moving the pod around a little bit as things have been hectic. So honestly, it's all a blur now.
Well, I did type yours for next week. You said deploy turnkeys, quantity 2.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. And yours
Yeah.
is 5 sales
That
proposals.
works for me.
Cool. And what's our last section here?
Yeah, that was it. So
Oh, cool.
challenge for the week. We cruised through it. We've leaned out the podcast a little bit here so we can
So
let
do you
this
want
babble.
to throw a personal thing in? What's on your personal plans right now, other than work?
Personal plans. I think part of the reason I'm a little tired was at a wedding last night. And so like I have hardly been drinking over the last several months. And last
Oh,
night I
yeah.
had a decent amount of tequila, because I
Yep.
do like tequila, and it was a good social event. So I'm like, all right, I'll drink here. And I am feeling old from that.
Yeah, that'll do it. For me, we've been going. Priscilla and I have been going to a lot more concerts lately, so that's been fun. Yeah, it's
Nice.
been a refreshing thing to do. But yeah, I guess we can close out there. I think we're both pretty white.
Good.
If you're listening and made it this far, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. Share it with a friend. Give us a 5-star review. It really helps. Cool.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to Matt and I's conversation this week on the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. If you like the podcast, please share it with a friend or give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week to continue sharing our respective journeys in life, business, and industrial automation. Thanks so much.